Imagine moving into a quiet neighborhood, where everyone seems friendly, until they start watching you. What if your simple nighttime routine made you a suspect? What if your neighbors thought you were hiding something dangerous? This is the story of Daniel Carter, the man who dug at midnight. And when the police arrived to investigate, what they found left everyone in shock. The town of Willow Creek was the kind of place where nothing ever happened. A quiet, suburban neighborhood where everyone knew each other. Where people waved as they passed by, where kids rode their bikes in the summer, and where the biggest drama was whether Mrs. Thompson's rose bushes were taller than the wall allowed. So, when a stranger moved into the old Carter house at the end of Maple Street, people noticed. His name was Daniel Carter, a man in his late 50s with graying hair and a quiet demeanor. He wasn't rude, he wasn't unfriendly, but he wasn't exactly social. He didn't attend the town's summer barbecue. He didn't make small talk at the grocery store. And most of all, he didn't seem interested in meeting his neighbors. For some, that was enough to make him suspicious. But what really set people on edge was what he did at night. It started on the third night after he moved in. A few neighbors had noticed his backyard lights flicker on around midnight. At first, they assumed he was fixing something. Maybe a leak? Maybe cleaning up? But then, someone saw him. Daniel Carter was digging, alone, in the dark, with nothing but a shovel and a flashlight. And he wasn't just digging small holes. He was digging deep. For the first few nights, people brushed it off. Maybe he was a gardener. Maybe he was planting something. But then he kept doing it. Every single night, the holes got bigger, the dirt piles grew, and as the days passed, people started to whisper. What was he doing? Was he burying something? Or worse, was he digging something up? A week later, the rumors had spread across the whole neighborhood. Some believed he was hiding something illegal. Others thought he was trying to cover up a crime. One woman even suggested he was burying bodies. And that's when one neighbor, Mr. Peterson, decided he had seen enough. He picked up his phone and called the police. Midnight. The town of Willow Creek was asleep. Except for Daniel Carter. He stood in his backyard, the soft glow of his flashlight casting eerie shadows across the freshly dug soil. His hands were covered in dirt, his breathing steady as he drove the shovel into the ground once again. The only sounds were the rustling leaves and the occasional distant bark of a dog. But Daniel wasn't alone, because tonight, someone was watching him. Across the street, behind the curtains of a darkened house, stood Mr. Peterson. His eyes narrowed as he watched Daniel's strange routine. Why would a man dig at midnight? Why always in the same spot? And why did he never plant anything? It didn't make sense. Peterson's fingers tightened around his phone. He could call the cops right now. But a small voice in his head whispered, "What if I'm wrong?" So, instead of dialing 911, he decided to wait, to watch, to see just what Daniel Carter was really up to. The next night, Peterson was back at his window. Watching, waiting, and sure enough, at exactly 11:57 p.m., Daniel emerged again. The same routine, flashlight in hand, shovel hitting the ground, the quiet, rhythmic sound of digging. Except tonight, something changed. A sound, faint, distant, but unmistakable. A deep, low sob. Peterson's heart pounded. He strained to listen. It wasn't loud, but it was real. Someone was crying. From the backyard. From the hole Daniel was digging. And that was it. That was the moment Peterson grabbed his phone and finally did what the entire neighborhood had been too scared to do. He called the police. Because now, it wasn't just a theory. Something wasn't right. By morning, the rumors had spread like wildfire. He's digging up something. He's burying evidence. Someone's crying in his backyard at night. Maybe he's keeping a prisoner. The town of Willow Creek had seen its fair share of gossip, but nothing like this. And at the center of it all? Daniel Carter. Mrs. Hopkins, the elderly woman who ran the neighborhood book club, was the loudest voice in the growing storm of speculation. I knew something was off the moment I saw him move in. She whispered to a group of neighbors. No friends, no family, and did you notice? No wife. The whispers grew louder. Neighbors started avoiding Daniel's house. Kids were told to stay away. And Mr. Peterson, the man who had called the cops the night before, he was waiting for the police to arrive. That evening, Daniel Carter went about his day as if nothing was wrong. He left for the grocery store. He mowed his lawn. He even waved at a passing jogger. But behind the curtains, dozens of eyes were watching him. Waiting, because tonight, Everything would change. 9:42 p.m. Mr. Peterson sat at his window, watching. Waiting. His phone rested on the table beside him. The police had said they'd look into it. But how long would that take? Daniel Carter was digging again tonight. And after what Peterson heard last night, the soft sobbing drifting from the backyard, he wasn't going to wait any longer. He picked up his phone. Dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? Peterson took a deep breath. There's a man digging in his backyard every night, he said. And last night, I heard someone crying. A pause. The dispatcher's tone shifted. Sir, did you witness any physical harm or see a person in distress? No, but I heard it. And he only digs at night. Something's not right. The dispatcher hesitated. Then, officers are on their way. Peterson exhaled. Finally. Now, they'd find out the truth. 10:15 p.m. A single squad car pulled up in front of Daniel Carter's house. Officer Emily Torres and her partner Deputy Mark Evans stepped out, their boots crunching on the pavement. From behind their curtains, half the neighborhood watched. Waiting, holding their breath. Torres knocked firmly on the door. No answer. She knocked again. Still nothing. Then Evans pointed. Backyard. Torres followed his gaze, and there he was. Daniel Carter, shovel in hand, his back turned to them as he dug deeper into the dark soil. Torres unclipped her flashlight, stepping forward. Sir, she called out, her voice firm. We need to speak with you. Daniel didn't move, didn't stop digging, didn't even look up. Torres' pulse spiked. She took another step forward. Sir, put down the shovel. Daniel suddenly froze. His body went rigid. Then, slowly, he turned to face them. And the look in his eyes? Haunted. Like a man who had been carrying a weight too heavy for one person to bear. Torres felt something shift in her gut. Something about this wasn't right. Something much deeper than what they thought. Sir, she tried again, softer this time. What exactly are you digging? Daniel let out a slow, heavy breath. And then, for the first time since he moved in, he finally spoke. Daniel Carter stared at the officers. His hands were covered in dirt. His face, pale under the dim glow of the flashlight. For a moment, there was silence. Then, finally, he spoke. I'm planting something. Officer Torres narrowed her eyes. At midnight? Daniel's jaw tightened. It's the only time I can. Evans took a slow step forward. Sir, your neighbors are concerned. They reported strange noises coming from your yard. Crying. At that, something changed in Daniel's expression. A flicker of pain. He exhaled. He hesitated. I didn't think anyone could hear that. Torres and Evans exchanged a glance. So there was something he wasn't saying. Sir, Torres pressed, we need to take a look at what you're digging. Daniel's fingers curled around the shovel handle. For a split second, Torres' muscles tensed. Was he going to refuse? But then, he nodded. He turned back toward the hole. Officer Torres stepped forward, shining her light into the soil. And that's when she saw it. Something was buried. Something wrapped in cloth. Her heartbeat spiked. Was it? She took a breath. Sir, step back. Daniel didn't move, so Evans reached for his radio. We're going to need backup. No. Daniel's voice cracked. The officers froze. And then, his voice broke completely. It's not what you think. Officer Torres' flashlight trembled slightly in her grip. The beam of light shined down into the hole. Onto the cloth-wrapped bundle. The air felt heavy. Too heavy. Evans instinctively reached for his radio again. Dispatch, we might have. Stop. Daniel's voice cracked so hard that both officers froze. Torres' hand hovered over her holster. Evans squared his shoulders. Sir, we need you to step away from the hole. But Daniel shook his head. Took a deep breath. And then, he bent down and reached for the cloth. Torres' heart pounded. She had seen this before. Late night digging. Buried objects. A man trying to cover his tracks. It was always the same. Until now. Because when Daniel finally pulled back the fabric, what was underneath wasn't a body. It was flowers. Torres blinked. For a moment, she didn't understand. Because wrapped inside the cloth were flower bulbs. Rows and rows of untouched, delicate bulbs. Evans stared. Wait, what? Daniel let out a shaky breath. His voice was raw. Lilies, he said quietly. She always wanted lilies. Torres' pulse slowed. Who? Daniel swallowed hard. And then, he told them the truth. The story was simple. Daniel's wife, Margaret, had loved to garden. She had dreamed of having a backyard full of flowers. But life had gotten in the way. There was never enough time. And then, one day, time ran out completely. Margaret had passed away before she ever got the chance. For years, Daniel couldn't bring himself to plant them. Until now. Until he moved to a new town. A fresh start. Until he finally found the strength to give her what she always wanted. Torres' throat felt tight. Evans cleared his throat, shifting awkwardly. Neither of them spoke, because what could they say? And then Torres realized something. The crying. Sir, she asked gently. The sobbing your neighbors heard, that was you, wasn't it? Daniel looked away, didn't answer, but he didn't have to. Because they already knew. He hadn't been burying a secret. He had been grieving. The backyard was silent. Officer Torres lowered her flashlight. Evans' grip on his radio loosened. For the past 2 weeks, the entire town had whispered about Daniel Carter. They thought he was dangerous. They thought he was hiding something. They thought he was burying a dark secret. And now? Now, they realized he was just a man mourning his wife. Daniel ran a hand down his face, exhausted. I know how it looked, he muttered. Digging every night like that. But I just wanted to do this for her. His voice cracked at the last word. Torres swallowed hard. Sir, why at night? Daniel let out a breath. I couldn't do it during the day. Torres tilted her head. Why not? Daniel's eyes were tired. Because I kept breaking down. Evans shifted uncomfortably. Daniel gave a sad chuckle. I tried. First time I went out there in the daylight. I held the shovel for maybe 5 minutes before I had to sit down. The second time, I barely got the first hole dug before I started crying. He looked at the rows of carefully wrapped flower bulbs. She waited her whole life to plant these, and she never got the chance. He sniffed. I promised her I'd do it for her one day. I just didn't think it'd take me this long. Torres felt a lump in her throat. Because how many people had assumed the worst about him? How many of them had whispered behind his back, treating him like an outsider? And yet, all this time, he had just been trying to keep a promise. Evans exhaled slowly. You should have told someone. Daniel gave a small, tired smile. If I had, do you really think anyone would have believed me? Neither officer answered. Because they knew the truth. They wouldn't have. The night was still. Officer Torres and Deputy Evans stood in silence, processing the truth. Daniel Carter was never a threat. Never a criminal. Never a danger to anyone. He was just a grieving husband, a man who had spent years carrying the weight of an unfulfilled promise. And now? Now the whole town had turned against him. The next morning, the rumors stopped, because word had spread. And this time, people finally knew the truth. Mr. Peterson, the one who had called the cops, stood in his driveway, staring at Daniel's house. For the first time in 2 weeks, he felt something unexpected, guilt. He had never spoken to Daniel. Had never asked him why he was digging. Had never given him a chance. And now? Now, all he could do was try to make it right. That afternoon, a knock echoed on Daniel's front door. When he opened it, he didn't expect to see his neighbors. Mr. Peterson, Mrs. Hopkins, the old woman who had spread half the rumors. A few others. And in Peterson's hands? A tray of fresh soil. A small shovel. And a pack of lily bulbs. Daniel blinked. What's this? Peterson cleared his throat, awkward. We were wrong about you. He gestured at the flowers. We want to help. For the first time in a long time. Daniel Carter didn't feel alone. That evening, for the first time, he wasn't digging alone. Half the neighborhood came to his backyard. Torres and Evans showed up, off duty. And together, they finished planting Margaret's garden. A week later, the first lilies bloomed. Bright, soft, peaceful, just like she would have wanted. Daniel stood in the yard, staring at the flowers. And for the first time in years, he smiled, because she finally had her garden. And he wasn't grieving alone anymore.